Hello! Just as promised, I'm going to log into the under desk server and just show you how I've got the Z-pool set up on there. So this is this was how I actually created the vault. So what I've got is the serial numbers of the machines. So I have 3 500 gigabyte drives, so half terabyte drives, in a mirror. So I've Z-pool create vault, so that's the name of it. So we sudo Z-pool create vault being the name of the actual storage position in mirror mode with this drive, that drive, and that drive. And the reason I used the serial numbers like that was because no matter which way round I then plug in the drives, and you'll remember I borrowed a SATA cable from this machine to try out the other server, no matter which way I did this, it would find the same drives. No big deal. I actually created at the time 3 Z-pools on this machine. So Vault is the name I give to my storage. It's where I put things that need to be kept. This is in mirror, so even if I take one of those drives out, there's 2 more copies of it right there. When you then put another drive in, you can add another drive to that pool and it will mirror onto it. As long as the drive's big enough, it will mirror everything that's on the other 2 drives back onto the third drive. I found that practically better and easier to resolve in a restore. So remember, that's a very underpowered machine. It's a socket 775 motherboard with 4 gigs of RAM, hosting a socket 771 4-core Xeon, and I think it's an E3520 or something really underpowered like that. So rebuilding a mirror is easier than rebuilding a RAID because you don't have to do any calculation, it just spews the data. That's how I run it. That's how I prefer to do it. Tank is a location that I will load up with stuff during the day. That's where I'll be working. When I come to shut down, it will then take everything that's in Tank and put it into Vault. So that's how I work. Scratch is not backed up. Scratch is just an area I don't back up. So I don't even think that there's a Tank and a Scratch still on this machine. I think they got nuked because I think the Scratch drive died and I didn't need it. So what I would do in Tank is where I'd have my source code checked out, I'd have working data stuff and all that kind of bits and bobs. If then I was generating data, so a good example might be protocol buffers. If I've got the Protoc compiler to run over a whole bunch of protocol buffer definitions, the definitions will output to Scratch. They won't output to Tank, because I don't want to keep them. I want to make sure my build is always deterministic. So that's one way I've always done that. So once I've got that, these are just stuff that's there. I think press cat 500. Yeah, so that's just the 500 discs when I did it. I think this was when I was then bonding network interfaces. So if we now look at my... Oh, so I've got a Scratch. So there is a Scratch and there is a Vault. There's no Tank at the moment. I took Tank out. Tank died. So you can see what I've got in there. Vault is showing us 450 gigabytes in size, not 500. I've used 96 gigabytes. That's 96 gigabytes of permanently backed up data. And something I've done with that is I've run SSD offline backup. So I have 128 gig stick that I will put in there, run a backup on that, and that will actually go to my in-laws' safe. That'll go into their safe at their house, and that's done once a month just to make sure I've got my data. I'm thinking as well of doing similar to 128 gig SD card in my laptop. My laptop pretty much stays with me all the time. So I'm not sure whether this needs encrypting basically, but it's something I'm thinking about doing as well. So if we've got Vault, we've got Scratch. I don't remember what's in Scratch right now. So music, pictures from Wales, pictures from server, a final project I was working on. But Vault has got like pictures, game codes. It's got my repos, it's got projects, it's got my Subversion backup. Subversion's been retired from my setup for a long time. You'll find Subversion was my source control of choice 5 years ago, but I'm now completely Git everywhere. I don't think there's anything weird in here. It's just Python code. These are some of the projects I was working on. So the Subversion content needs probably looking at. But my repos, I'm not even going to go into there because it gives away some of the stuff I've been working on. I wish it wouldn't go bling, bling, bling. Yeah, so if anybody wants the Zpool stuff, just go and look about it. The Zpool create the name in mirror mode works so well. If we clear sudo Zpool status. There we go. So there's Scratch with the one drive in it, and there's Vault with the 3 mirrors. So you can see here these are the 3 mirrored drives that we saw earlier. I could add a second mirror, I could add a second group, I could add or remove drives from that group, no problem. If you take them out, it's the easiest way to work. So yeah, no big deal. I don't know why I ran a scrub, but I did. Running a scrub without ECC memory is fine. So yeah. The other thing I do is when I'm working on a project. Oh, so here's the multi-boxer code. Islands is a project. Browser games is a project. Bluebird is the name I use for an awful lot of stuff. Unfortunately, I also used it for the basic name of a product I wrote myself. I led the development for my prior employer. And yeah, I now kind of had bitter memories of the name Bluebird, but I like the name Bluebird. It's sort of my homage to Donald Campbell calling things Bluebird. But it actually came out of having a whole bunch of bird names. So I had alphabetical bird names for releases at one time. So the first one was Avoset, the Avoset, and then there was a bluebird, and then there was a crow, and so on and so forth. And when I did that project, the bluebird version of it was the better received. So Bluebird kind of stuck, but yeah, it was because of Donald Campbell. I like Bluebird, very brave fellow. So yeah, that's my server that I'm going to be replacing. I don't think CPU info is installed. No, so bit boring for you, but that's just part of Linux, maintenance and all that kind of thing. At least now I've got the Ethernet back in the machine. There's only a single to it, which it'll be fine. The big server will be online soon enough. So yeah, tech tinkering, off we go.